Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Let's Meet the Author with me, Guilene Philmore, as the host. Today, I have some exciting news. Today, I have one of my favorite authors, and soon she'll be one of your favorite authors, Miss Alice Newsome. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad you came on the show. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come on my show. I really appreciate it.
I really appreciate being here. Thank you for the invitation.
Oh, no problem. Before we continue, I want to do a short introduction of Miss Alice Newsome. She's a mother, she's a wife, all right? She's a grandmother, and she's one of my personal friends, all right? And she's also an author of The Sordid Lives of Jesus' Ancestors. Every family has skeleton in their closet. Jesus' family does too. What made you decide to write this book? Because the Bible, I know, is mostly contributed to the males, talks about the men and their stories and what they're going through and everything. But what made you decide to write about the women?
What made me decide to write about the women was reading Matthew chapter 1. Mm-hmm. And like you said, it starts with the genealogy and it has Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, but then dispersed in that first chapter of Matthew, I think it's the first 6 verses, you'll find 4 named women. And I thought that was interesting because when you know these women and their stories, it's quite impactful to your life.
It is.
And so the Bible becomes really, really interesting, and it could read like one of your favorite novels if you know these stories.
Oh yeah, because once I got my hands on the book, because the title itself, I was like, The Sordid Lives of Jesus' Ancestors, he's perfect. Jesus, I mean, the Son of God, he's perfect, which means his ancestry line should be perfect. Everyone, affiliated with Jesus should be perfect. But after reading this book, I got a different perspective. And so we're going to go ahead and dive into it. All right, so now the first woman is on page 17. It talks about Sarah. And everyone, if you read the Bible before, when I'm pretty sure that you have, Sarah was unable to conceive. All right, so she had some trouble with that. And I'm pretty sure as women today, we can go ahead and relate to Sarah. So tell me a little bit about her.
Yeah, like you said, she was unable to conceive. All of her childbearing years, she tried many times, but she was never able to conceive. And so, God has a sense of humor. And after she passed menopause, it was time for her to become a mother.
Wow.
So that's kind of...
Imagine that.
I can't.
I'm going, after menopause, no. I would tell God, like, no, we're good. We are good. I'm okay. I'll just relish on, godchildren and such. But
yeah. She even said something in the scripture. She said, when God said she's going to be a mother, she's going to bear Abraham's son, she laughed and she said, am I going to have pleasure in my old age?
She was old.
She was old.
Yeah. She was old.
And so was Abraham.
Yes.
So can you, anyway.
Exactly. But you guys know what I mean. All right. And then after that, we go into the next woman that's mentioned in the Bible, Rebecca. All right. So again, if you read the word, you'll know Rebecca's story, but it's also mentioned in this book. And again, all these women are all part of Jesus' ancestry. So tell me a little bit about Rebecca.
Rebecca was a chosen wife. She was actually chosen for Isaac. She had never met her husband.
Could you imagine not meeting someone you're going to get married to?
Yeah, and live the rest of your life with.
Which still happens to today.
Yeah. Wow, it does happen.
It does.
It does.
Yeah.
So Rebecca was chosen, and she left her family, and then she moved in with Isaac. And they fell in love. Yeah. They ended up loving each other, and they had a couple of boys.
Yeah. When back then, and I know it was a blessing to have boys and boys and boys.
Yes.
All right. But didn't Rebecca have a sister?
Rebecca,
no.
If she did, it wasn't mentioned.
No, okay. So then the next one talks about Leah. So Leah is someone I know a lot of women to this day can identify with. Could you imagine being in a marriage, all right, where you're not loved as much from your husband? Your husband is giving attention to his other wife, or his other significant other. And so this goes really deep into Leah's story. So tell me a little bit about Leah and the feelings that she had of despair.
Leah was an unloved wife, like you said.
Yeah.
You know, she was like the booby prize. I believe she was forced to marry Jacob. I don't believe this was Leah's bright idea. I don't believe Leah had that kind of power in the first place. I believe her father forced her to marry Jacob.
Because the oldest had to be married before the younger sister, So I could just imagine, okay, your dad's coming to you and saying, nope, you're going to go ahead and marry this man and you're going to be fine with it and you're going to be happy with it. That's not something I know I would want, but that's something that, hey, it happened back in the day. And that's something that she had to live with. So being in an unhappy marriage, all right, it would cause, that's something that some women I know today can go ahead and deal with or relate to, rather.
She was unhappy. Well, she was unhappy.
Yeah.
But, you know, you have to remember that Jacob didn't love her.
Right.
Jacob thought he was marrying the love of his life.
Right.
So Leah was, like I said, a booby prize wife.
Yeah.
And she was treated as such.
And Rachel. Is it Rachel?
Rachel.
Okay. Rachel. I have to read my word again.
Rachel was beautiful and she
Gorgeous.
was loved by Jacob.
She was.
Yes. So on that wedding night, Jacob thought he was holding Rachel. And to his surprise, he woke up holding Leah.
God. And then it's something else because they're both sisters too.
They're sisters.
So cause a little bit of rivalry.
Yeah.
You know?
So now I imagine that Leah and Rachel were close because they were sisters.
Right.
So they had that nice sister relationship. They talked to each other. And I'm sure Rachel talked to Leah about Jacob and how she loved him so much. And then for Rachel to be the second wife.
It's like,
and Leah, the first wife, of course Rachel's going to resent Leah.
Yeah.
And Leah was envious of Rachel and Jacob's relationship because Leah was unloved.
I'm like,
Hi everyone, Michael Newsom here with Eagle-Eye Video Maker. And I've got some great news for you, but first I want to ask you a question. Have you ever wanted to have your own show? Your very own show? Well, Eagle-Eye Video Maker is making that possible for you. Whether it's a cooking show or an interview type show or spoken word show, it is your platform. You're the artist. Eagle-Eye Video Maker is making possible our studio so that you can come in, we will record your show in 1080p high definition, and our staff will do all of the production work, handle all of the lighting, handle all of the audio and the sound, just to make your show number one.
the next lady on page 57 is Tamar. So after reading the book, I had to go back into my word and because again, when you read the book, it's exciting. It makes you want to go ahead and dive more into the Bible. It is exciting. So, but I don't want to talk too much about it because I'm not going to give all the secrets away. But Tamar tricked her father-in-law.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So give me a little bit about that. Just a little bit.
Tamar, I mean, this is a situation where you take your life into your own hands.
Yeah.
You said, I've been treated bad.
Yeah.
I've been deceived. I've been tricked. I'm not taking it anymore. I'm going to do this and you can't stop me. Nobody's going to stop me. Nobody's going to talk me out of it.
Yeah.
I am doing this. I know what it sounds like,
Yep.
but I'm going to do it anyway.
Yep.
And she did.
And she did. And she did. She took
did.
matters in her own hand. And it worked out. It really did.
It worked out. Now she became the first named woman in Matthew chapter 1 in the
It worked
ancestry of
out.
Jesus. It worked out.
And then the next woman is on page 68. I pronounce it as Rahab, but I know different people pronounce it different. But Rahab, which is the mother of Boaz, and I'm pretty sure that we've all heard about her. But let's go ahead and talk about her.
Oh, Rahab. Rahab was, she was a clever woman. She ran a house of ill repute.
Yep.
And God's men were sent to spy out the land that they were about to conquer. And they stopped by the prostitute's house.
The prostitute house.
The prostitute's house.
Men of God.
Men of God.
By the prostitute house.
Stopped by the prostitute's house.
Wow.
Wow. And as a result of that, she's in the ancestry of Jesus.
Exactly. Again.
She was a prostitute.
A prostitute. Yeah. So we have one who was a prostitute who tricked her father-in-law. So you got someone who was deceitful. And then you have a prostitute. All of this in the line of Jesus' bloodline. I mean, that's amazing.
It is
it's not
amazing.
something that you would think about.
No, you wouldn't.
All right. So then we have Ruth. Talk about, I know everyone heard the story about Ruth, but let's talk a little bit about Ruth.
Okay, Ruth was a dedicated daughter-in-law. She was so much committed to her mother-in-law that she left her own family and followed her mother-in-law back to a land they had left because of famine. So when she arrived, this place was, it was a house. They had a place to stay, but they had no food. They had no money. They really didn't have anything. So Ruth wasn't content to just sit around the house all day. So she got up and she went out and started to work. And the very first day that she started to work in this field, Boaz took notice of her. And Boaz was the landowner. And so Ruth then became a part of the ancestry of Jesus, even though she wasn't a Jew.
And that's amazing, because you would think, all right, nope, we're going to keep the same culture. We're going to keep the same.
You would think so.
Yeah.
A pure bloodline.
Pure.
Yes.
And so far,
it's not.
It's not. It's not.
There's nothing pure about it.
Jesus' bloodline.
It is. It's Jesus' bloodline.
Now, one of my favorite parts in the book is on page 80, the dramatization, the conversation between Naomi and Ruth. Is one of my favorite parts because it puts it into real terms, real life terms, today terms.
I've been thinking.
What have you been thinking about, Mom?
I think it's time to find a good home for you so you can have a happy life.
Life's not so bad. We have a place to stay and food to eat.
It's more to life than that. And girl, you work too hard.
I don't mind working.
I know you don't mind working, but I want to make things so much better for you.
How are you going to do that?
Well, you've been working in Boaz's field, right?
That's right.
And you know, Boaz is a close relative.
Yes, you mentioned that before.
Well, I think it's time to make our move.
What move?
Well, tonight, Boaz will be working at the threshing floor.
Oh, he's working tonight?
Uh-huh. And here's what I want you to do. Take a bath.
Take a bath?
Uh-huh. Put on some perfume.
Put on perfume?
Yes, and put on this dress.
This dress?
Uh-huh.
Oh, this is a beautiful dress.
And after you get all dressed up, go down to the threshing floor.
Mama, you want me to go down to the threshing floor in this dress?
Uh-huh.
What?
Listen now.
I'm listening.
When you get to the threshing floor, be very quiet.
Okay.
Get close enough so you can see Boaz as he works.
Huh?
Listen now. Be sure to watch him and see where he goes to sleep.
You want me to stalk Boaz?
Well, uh-huh.
Then on page 90, all right, Bathsheba, all right, we have an exciting part later. We're going to talk about Bathsheba, but just mention just a little bit about Bathsheba.
Yeah, Bathsheba, we're introduced to her in the scriptures when she was just simply taking a bath.
That's it.
That's it. She was simply taking a bath,
What we
a
do all the
personal
time.
moment.
Exactly.
Yes. And she ends up in the bloodline of Jesus.
Yep. It's called Author's Pick.
The portion of book that I read, that I decided to read today, it's from chapter 7, and it's from Bathsheba. And here it is. The next woman Matthew chapter 1 mentions in the ancestry of Jesus is the wife of Uriah. Uriah was a soldier in the Israelite army. In fact, he was in the special forces and one of King David's 37 elite soldiers. He was married to a beautiful woman named Bathsheba. We are introduced to Bathsheba in 2 Samuel chapter 11 when she was taking a bath. She had just completed the purification rites after her menstrual cycle. As you know, bathing is a private moment, and Bathsheba had no idea she was being watched by the king. A short time after she finished bathing, there was a knock at her door. To her surprise, there stood a royal messenger who gave her a summons to appear before the king. Not next week or even tomorrow, but right now. Imagine the thoughts running through Bathsheba's mind. What did I do? Why does the king want to see me? Uriah! Is Uriah okay? Bathsheba nervously entered the palace and bowed before the king. King David extended his hand, and some of Bathsheba's anxieties disappeared. She had never been so close to the king before. She noticed that he was very handsome with beautiful eyes, but she felt a bit uncomfortable because of the king's lustful stares. It became blatantly clear to Bathsheba that she was not summoned to the king's palace because something was wrong. No, she was summoned to the king's palace for the king's pleasure. And who could say no to the king? As Bathsheba surrendered to the king's sexual advances, she could smell the fresh scent of his hair and the sweet-smelling musk from the sweat of his body. After her encounter with the king, Bathsheba was taken home. The ride seemed unusually long, and she thought of her husband, Uriah. If he had been home instead of fighting in the king's war, this never would have happened. Oh, how she missed Uriah. Bathsheba had a difficult time comprehending the fact that she had just slept with the king of Israel. Tears ran down her face as she washed his scent from her skin. Her emotions were all over the place. She was ashamed of the evening's event, yet she was flattered that the king found her irresistible.
Wow. See, I told you. You're gonna get, and it gets better and better. Alice, why pick this part to read in the author's pick segment of the show?
Because Bathsheba, I think, is just kind of, actually, she's not even named. Her name isn't even Bathsheba in Matthew chapter 1. It's wife of Uriah.
Wow.
Yeah, she's identified as wife of Uriah, even though she had sons by King David. So I picked Bathsheba because I wanted to just emphasize that she was actually a human being, and she was taken for a ride and taken advantage of.
Yep. Yes, she was.
So how do you feel when you go to a king? You know, the king summons you. He's all powerful. He summons you and you go and he just wants to have sex with you. And then after he has sex with you, he sends you home.
Wow. Yeah, I would feel low. I would feel dirty. Yeah, I would. I would. I mean, the king, because the king put you in a situation that you did not want to be in.
You didn't.
You know? And I'm like, yeah. Wow.
Just because you were taking a bath and he didn't have anything to do and he spotted you naked taking a bath and desired you.
Wow.
And had you because he was powerful.
Yeah. I would literally feel, I would feel like I was taken advantage of. And she was. And that's how I would feel. Talk about Mary, and everyone knows that's Jesus' mom, and everyone knows her story. But give me a little bit about Mary's. I know in your book you mentioned how she gets a visit from an angel, and again, everyone knows that Mary was a virgin. Right. Could you imagine, an angel coming down and saying, "All right, so you're going to be pregnant." Wait, what? I'm going to be, I'm a virgin. What are people going to think about me? What are my family going to think about me? What the community's going to think about me? Because we already know in today's term, if you have a child before marriage, or if you have a child, then you're not a virgin. So, but this was different for Mary. So how can we relate to Mary?
Well, we can relate to Mary if God has given you a promise. If God has said something to you that you believe God said, but you're just waiting for it to come to be. So Mary was told by the angel that she was going to have a baby. Yeah. She was also told by the angel that her cousin Elizabeth was pregnant. Right. So there's a scripture that talks about Mary hurrying off to visit Elizabeth. Yeah. And I believe that happened because Mary was thinking about, what if they find out I'm pregnant and I'm not married. Right. And what's Joseph gonna think? And what are my friends gonna say? And what's mom and dad gonna say? All of these thoughts running through Mary's head.
And naturally worrisome.
That's how we are.
Exactly.
And so I believe because of all of these thoughts running through her head, and she just saw an angel, there was no one she could relate this to. There was nobody she could tell. I couldn't go to you and say, Guilene, I just saw an angel. You look at me like yeah,
really?
Okay, yeah, really.
And what did the angel say?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Elizabeth, her husband had a visit from an angel. So Mary could go to Elizabeth's house, and she and Elizabeth could communicate on a level that no one else could, because they both had angelic visitations.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah. And so Mary goes to Elizabeth's house, and she stays with Elizabeth about 3 months, and then she comes home. But in that time, Mary gets to miss some periods, and she gets to start feeling a little swelling. Start to get a little belly bump, and then she has proof that what the angel told her was true. Now she doesn't sound so crazy, like God said I was going to have a baby.
It's like his promise came through.
His promise came
immediately. But on his time. I love it. And now, as you go further into the book on page 111, it talks about the Hall of Faith. I love it. It talks about the impact on society is yet to be seen. So, when reading this book, the impact that it had on me is that it gave me the courage to go ahead and ask God for forgiveness. And now, which may come off as weird because everyone's like, you should just ask God for forgiveness for anything because He's God and He's going to forgive you. That's the promise He did in the Bible. But for someone like me who feels like, oh my gosh, I've done this and I've done that and I've done this. And then I'm looking at all the women in the bloodline, prostitute, deceitfulness. I mean, it's just like, wow, you know what? Maybe I'm not too bad. And that gave me courage to say, okay, Lord, I can approach you. Please forgive me. Please, I need help with this and I need help with that. That's the impact that this book had for me. All right, it encouraged me to read the Word. It encouraged me to just go ahead and approach Him. Encouraged me to trust Him. That I know that he's going to forgive me. Let me know that I'm going to be okay. And that he's backing me up, you know. Sometimes I lose that. But that's the impact that this book had on me. So I know you wrote this. What impact that you wanted this book to have on everyone, whether young ladies, older ladies, men, you know what I mean, anybody, leaders, anyone, what impact did you hope that this book would have?
Okay. It's actually on the back of my book, and I'm going to read it. It's my hope that you will find these stories refreshing and inspiring. May they whet your appetite to read more of God's Word as you gain insight into the lives of these characters. So what I wanted people to know was that synonyms for the word sordid are disgusting, disreputable, despicable, repugnant, and sleazy. And it may be difficult to believe, but these are the type of people that God chose to be in the bloodline of Jesus. So just like you say, no one's ever too bad to ask for forgiveness. There's no sin that you can commit that God can't forgive. Because God sent Jesus for that very purpose, to give us life and to have us know that God wants us to be forgiven. God wants a relationship with us. And for that to happen, he has to forgive us. And so he sent Jesus to live this life so that we could be forgiven.
Awesome. Now I'm about to go into tears. I'm awesome. So now I want to go into another favorite part of my show.
Author's quote.
Jesus came through the lineage of royally sin-filled people to save the world from sin.
Wow.
That was
you
his
gotta
purpose.
Say that again.
That was his purpose. Jesus came through royally sin-filled people to save the world from sin.
I like that. That's huge.
That's huge.
Wow. Wow. Well, thank you so much, Alice. I really appreciate again that you've taken the time out to come out on Let's Meet the Author. And to my audience, all right, thank you again for joining us today on Let's Meet the Author. I genuinely appreciate your time, your attention. All right, please spread the word. All right, we're going to always be here. So on Let's Meet the Author, see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.